Okay, here we go. My daughter told me, she said, Daddy, I can always tell you about to start something when you got that look on your face when you go live. She said, I could always tell when you finna say something you ain't got no business, Daddy, when you got that look on your face. Well, I don't mean no harm. Good to see everybody. Rep your city. Rep your city, rep your city, rep your city. I am representing Chicago. Everybody on Twitch, what's up? Everybody on Kick, everybody on YouTube, and everybody on Facebook, what's up? I'm representing the beautiful city of Chicago, Illinois. It's going to be a long week. Link might get cut off starting Tuesday. Ugh. I need to do some push-ups to get ready. It's going to be a long week, it looks like. A lot going on. Rep your city. Come on in, hit that like button, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Much love and respect to everybody. Hopefully, I'm not offending anybody, but it's a dirty job, but somebody's got to do it. All right. Yeah, I'm trying to get them games. We got Brooklyn in the house. New York City was popping. So, I made a little comments about a certain content creator, but, I don't do internet beefs. So I'm just going to talk about the subject at hand rather than the back and forth. I don't do that. Plus, once I say something, it's written in stone, so let it be written, so let it be done. We got Buffalo in the building, XYZ in the house. Salute to you, brother. It's a dirty job, but somebody's got to do it. This is going to be a crazy week, I think. But tonight we're talking about Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism. Ugh. Pan-Africanism. We're going to talk about that. There's a lot of historians involved in that, but the most popular one is Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey is the most popular, but you got Delaney and others. All right. No, it's not just because the bigger person. The brother, he's like a brethren. You know what I mean? He's not an enemy. You know what I'm saying? So I ain't going to do him, too bad. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to do him that bad because, in all fairness, I had to pick between two brothers. I had to pick between that brother and I had to pick between Tariq Nasheed. That's not my fault that he put himself in between that. And I had to let it be known what side I stand on. I stand with FBA, Tariq Nasheed and FBA. I don't stand on the Pan-African side. I just had to let that be known. And I thought that was bogus the way that was done. I thought that wasn't done. That wasn't smart. I thought that wasn't wise. And I'm thinking, don't be stepping on FBA and don't be stepping on reparations. Stay in your place. Stay in your lane and stay in your place. Don't speak on that in front of these people we trying to get our reparations from, and here you is sending mixed signals when we already in a war. We in a war for our reparations. You with it or what? So I didn't like it. I didn't like it. I didn't like it. I'm on the right side of history. We want our reparations. It's FBA all day. And Tariq Nasheed did a great thing by coming up with that title. I think that was a great thing. I think that's historical. I think he's going down in history for that title, Foundational Black Americans. I actually believe that's what we're going to be for now on. We're going to be foundational Black Americans. That's here to stay. I believe that's here to stay. I really do. I believe that term, foundational Black Americans, is here to stay. I think that was a winner right there. Mind you, I go back to, I go back to Negro, when I was a little boy, Negro, coloreds. And then we was Black Americans, and then we was Black. We chose Black because of the whole Black Power movement. So we chose Black over Black Americans. There's a lot of false information that Jesse Jackson pushed African American. That's false. It's a good thing that somebody's here that was actually here than people that wasn't here trying to tell you history when they wasn't here. Jesse Jackson did not come up with African American. African American was created by the news network as a way to fit us in with all the other Americans. That's all that was. All that was just another way to fit us in with the rest of the Americans. That's it. That wasn't an individual title that was just made just to make us a title. That was something that had to be fit in between a description of other Americans. And at that time in the 60s, going towards the 70s, the news used to come on, and there was still a lot of ethnic identity. So they still used to say Italian Americans, Chinese Americans, Irish Americans. And so they just called us African Americans, just to fit in with those list of titles. That was it. That's all that was. That was just another term to be said along with Chinese American, Italian American, Greek American, Polish American, African American, because there was no country that they could use to identify us. They had to call us something American, so they used African. That's a fact. Good to see you, April. That's where that came from. Don't let nobody, And then Jesse Jackson just kept using it because Jesse Jackson was always on the news. And that was a news term. African American was a term to use in the midst of using Polish American, Italian American. I know y'all young, so y'all don't hear the term Italian American that much. You don't hear Greek American that much. You don't have little Greece and little Italy no more. But back then you still had little Italy. You still had little Greece. Now you still do. I think you still have Koreatown and Chinatown, but you don't really have the other towns like you used to. You used to have all the towns. Polish, everybody had a town. Jewtown. Jewtown was down. Jewtown is not here anymore. Okay, I'm giving you the fact. Somebody that was here. African American was a news term, not from Jesse Jackson. I gotta do a whole live on all of these so it could be documented. Ain't that a shame I gotta do all this? This don't make no sense. I gotta do a whole live stating that Jesse Jackson didn't create the term African American. Yeah, they don't know they wasn't here. African American, Black Americans never used the term African American. That was the news. African American ain't been around that long. African American came out when I was a kid. How old are you, Kay? The term African American came out when I was a child. It haven't been here long. I was born in 1958, and you were coloreds and Negroes. The late 40s? How old are you? Oh, you in your late 40s? Yeah. No, sweetheart. No. African Americans, when I was little, we were coloreds and Negroes. African American is a late 60, early 70 term. Yeah, sweetheart. Okay. So African American is a late, always remember that, it's a late 60, early 70 term, and it's not a term used by the people. It is a news term used by CBS, NBC, ABC, WGN. It was something that newsmen used. Like, you know how y'all, when you go to school and stuff, school use certain terms, or when you're talking politics, you watching political news, they use certain terms. Well, African American was a news term used in the midst of Chinese American, Polish American, you know, like when they tell the news stories. So they might want to tell a news story about what's going on with the Polish people. It'd be like the Polish American community, right? The Chinese American community, the Italian American community is boycotting this gangster movie, saying it's making the Italian American community look bad. That one was used a lot because they was boycotting the gangster movies. And so they had to have one for us. So what kind of American is we? You see what I'm saying? We was American, right? And you got Chinese American, you got Polish American, you got Italian American. What are we gonna call the black ones? Call them African American, since we don't know what country they from. So they gave us the whole continent. But it was a news term. All right? We never agreed to nothing. It was a news term. Nobody called the news and said, okay, that's cool. It was a term used on the news. The Italians never agreed to be described as Italian Americans. They just called themselves Italians, I'm sure. Nobody never agreed to use that, sweetheart. That's a news term. That's a professional term. We called ourselves black. Nobody called them and said, okay, you can use that on the news. You see what I'm saying, sweetheart? So it wasn't, that's what people trying to act like black. We never, it was just a news term. Yeah, it was just a news term. So it didn't bother us because it was only used rarely. Nobody hardly used the term African American, Nobody, it wasn't a word nobody hardly used. Seriously, nobody hardly used African American, like, not that I know of. We were Negroes and coloreds. But Maya, originally, we was Negress. Negras. I'm foundational Black America. I'm not Indigenous American. Indigenous American is a false term. Indigenous American applies to some of our ancestors. Some of our ancestors were Indigenous America. Some of our ancestors were definitely slaves. And so, Brian, when you hear people try to pretend that we was all here, that's ridiculous. Anybody thinks that everybody brown was here already is crazy. Yes, there was some brown people here, but there was also brown people brought here from Africa, and there was also brown people brought here from the Caribbean. Those of us study know that a lot of slaves was transported from Haiti and Jamaica to New Orleans. Those that study do know that blacks were brought up from the Caribbean. You see, Brian, and you see how people don't go in depth to the study. The new generation can't rewrite history because they don't know history. And how could you rewrite something that you don't know in the first place? It's best to say the new generation just want to make stuff up. The new generation doesn't know any history. How could you rewrite the Bible if you ain't read the Bible? The new generation is on the internet talking with no credentials to substantiate if they know what they're talking about, because they're on the internet. They're on the internet. They don't know nothing. They're just talking. But no, we're a mixture of people. That's why we're foundational Black Americans. So we're a mixture. We're a mixture of people. Don't let anybody fool y'all that you was any one particular type of Black person. Once slavery, listen, this is all y'all got to remember. Slavery was a business. And there was a business of breeding babies to have slaves, was a business. The British shut down slavery, so they wasn't able to bring any more slaves over. Okay? They shut them down, so they had to breed them. Okay? So slaves did not come from Africa or nowhere. Most of the slaves, by the time you get to the late 1700s, was bred here. For example, young people, If I go to Africa and get 1,000 chickens, right? Right? If I go to Africa and get 1,000 chickens and bring them over here, right? We're not doing the disrespect. Bring something positive to the table. I'm gonna get you out of here, Maya. If I bring 1,000 chickens from Africa, do I have to go back and get some more? No. I could take the roosters, right? And I could take the hens. And while I'm wasting time going back and forth, what? I could breed them. The British banned slavery, and they was losing a lot of slaves in slavery too. A lot of cargoes didn't make it. They would come be sick and all that. It was much easier to take some men, send them from farm to farm to farm to sleep with the women and get the women pregnant every 10 months. As soon as you have a baby, she heal up a few weeks, back pregnant, back pregnant. Mind you, your people had a lot of twins and triplets back in those days. So they would be able to breed lots of babies. When you're in the business of breeding babies and you're crooked, are you going to care where you get the babies from? Right? So you're going to get the babies from wherever you can get the babies from. So in some cases, the slave owners would mate with the slave women. And when them women had them babies, they made them babies slaves. They did not give them babies special treatment because that was the master's baby. If you had that brown skin and you could take that sun, you pick cotton. Because you got to understand that slavery was built on the ability to work in the sun. See, they don't tell our people the facts. What made you perfect for slavery was your brown skin and the fact you was used to being out in the hot sun and you could do it. Europeans get sunburned easy, so they can't pick cotton. They can't stand out there. It was all economics. It wasn't personal. You was the best cotton picker and you grew the best cotton because the best cotton in the world still comes from ancient Kemet. So they was breeding all these babies and they breed anybody with anybody. If you was a Native American woman, listen, if I'm trying to have babies to pick cotton and I got some black mandingos and I boss the Native Americans around, you don't think I'm going to take they women and chain them up in them bars and have them black men, them African men and them Haitian descendant Africans go up in them women so they can have more babies? I just need babies. I don't care where I get them from. So first thing you got to remember about slavery, wasn't no rules on how they got babies. So don't let nobody tell you this person was a slave. No, anybody that can have a baby is having a baby. Okay? That's very important for you to know. So a lot of people is giving y'all false information. It's just false information. It's a lot of bootleg teachers out here. It's a lot of teachers that ain't qualified to be teaching. I'm going to tell you straight up. They just out here talking. They haven't read. They don't study or nothing. They just get out here talking. Which is disingenuous. Let me show you something. This sums it up. Remember, 12 years a slave? He was free. He could have been a Moor or anything. Did they care? No. They grabbed him and they put him in slavery. He wasn't on no slave ship. He was a freeman. Right? And they put that man in slavery for 12 years, a free man. Which proves what? Anybody, listen, if you got some drunk white dudes and they can make money with a slave, ain't they going to catch any brown person they can catch? So if they catch you and you a Moor, they going to let you go because you a Moor? No. Who believes that slave catchers would let you go if you was a Moor? No. You're not finna be a Moor no more. You finna be a slave. It was a business. It was a business. Okay? And they was breeding anybody. And so if you ask me, am I Native American? Yes. If you ask me, am I Hebrew Israelite? Yes. You ask me, am I Kemetic? Yes. You ask me, I'm all of that. I'm probably 3 or 4 different Native American tribes, definitely some African tribes, white. I'm sure I got some white blood in there. My last name is Stewart. I don't know how y'all think y'all got them last names and you don't got no white blood. When you got European last names, your name Johnson and Smith and stuff, right? Okay. Who gave you them names? And they didn't sleep with the woman? Yes, they did. Sure, they did. So you don't have any particular blood. So no, you're not indigenous. You haven't been here the whole time. Anybody that says that is a fool. How could a mixed person be here the whole time and you're mixed? Young people, this is the best way to remember who you are. This is the way you remember it. And this is how you teach your children. You got 2 parents. You got 4 grandparents. You got 8 great-grandparents. You got 16 great-great-grandparents. You got 32 great-great-great-grandparents. And you got 64 great-great-great-great-grandparents. Okay? You got 128 great-great-great-great-great-grandparents. You don't know what each one of them 128 people were. I rest my case. Unless you can tell me who those 128 people was of your great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents, you just talking. No, our lineage don't go back to Europe. Parts of our lineage go back to Europe because we don't have no lineage, Brandon. We mixed. Look, Brandon, if I got a Rottweiler, female, and she in heat, and she go out there, she get pregnant by a German Shepherd, what's her lineage? Her lineage don't go one place. Her lineage go down the Rottweiler lineage and the German Shepherd lineage. She don't have no lineage. You got a mother and a father. They got a mother and a father. Their mother and father got a mother and a father. So when we talk about lineage as far as foundational Black American, we mean we were the ones here during slavery. That's what we mean. That's how far we're going back. That's what FBA is. So all of you all are FBA. If you were here during slavery, you are FBA. Your lineage traced back to slavery. You are not a Native American. And you cannot prove you're a Native American because you don't know all your great, 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 great grandparents. You don't know them. How could you claim something you don't know? We can barely trace ourselves back to the Census Bureau. Once you go past the Census Bureau, you don't have any information of who you are. That's a fact. This is why reparations was given to us based on only tracing ourselves back to the census, the 18 something census. Once you go past that 18 whatever year census, you don't know what you are. You just talking. Show me one person that could tell me their lineage from the 1700s. Nobody. So how you a Native American if you can't prove who you was in the 1700s? You just talking. Right? You just talking. You went back to the 1700s. That's good. But you only went down one road though. Right? Didn't you? Didn't you, Jazzo? You either went down your mother's road or your daddy's road. Tell them so they know the truth. You didn't go down both roads, did you? Tell them, Jazzy, because they're going to think you went all the way back on both lineages. You didn't. You went back either on your mother's side or on your daddy's side. Right. So that means still don't know who you are. you don't know your daddy's side. See what I'm saying? That's just half the story. But once your daddy slept with your mother, you got that too. Who is they? You know, who is they? Boom. They could be anything. So you can't look on your mother's side and say, oh, I'm what they was. No, because you mixed with your daddy's side. And who knows? So I'm glad you said that, sweetheart. That was perfect. It helped me. Thank you. It helped me explain it. We got two sides. How they said it must be two sides. So we got two sides, and then they go far. So there we have it. So it's fair to say that we're foundational Black Americans, simple and sweet. That can include Native American blood, African blood, anybody blood. Oh, that's your cousin? I never heard of him, but that's great. Right? So your reparations is going to be based on you showing your lineage in this country back to slavery. Does FBA take away from ADOS? FBA, ADOS is the same thing, just a different description. So FBA and ADOS is the same thing. American Descendants of Slaves, Foundational Black Americans, same thing. Different way to describe it. Same thing. The reason most of us prefer FBA because we don't like to call ourselves descendants of slaves because we're not descendants of slaves. We were in slavery, but we don't like to call ourselves slaves because we feel like just because I'm in slavery and just because you call me a slave don't mean I'm a slave. So just because they had us in slavery, they wanted us to be a slave. But we never going to consider ourselves a slave. So I don't like American descendants of slaves. I like foundational Black Americans, especially consider we invented everything. We want that money too. So a lot of people don't understand reparations because we invented all of this stuff for the automobile, the telephone, and you can go back and back to the Black inventors. They got a video with Trump saying, we made everything. We made this, that, that. And they show all Black people for everything he said America made, a Black person made it. Y'all seen that video? Y'all seen that video where Trump said we made everything and everything he said we made, Black people made it? Have y'all seen that? Hold on. I think they play music with this stuff, so I can't play the music, but I might be able to show it. Watch this. I might be able to show it though. I ain't gonna play it, but I'll show it. And then we're gonna get to this conversation. Because Pan-Africanism is ridiculousness, okay? You young people that's growing up, that's coming up, and you want to pick up some type of knowledge or something like that, I'm finna show it. Pan-Africanism is not the knowledge you want to pick up, okay? That's not it, all right? Pan-Africanism is a washed up philosophy. And we're going to get into all of that. How can I show this without this playing? And turn the volume down on it. I really should have. You know what I should have did? Hold on. I should have just turned the volume off myself. Let me just turn the volume off. I don't got to worry about that. Good thing I got my technical skills up. I'm going to show it to you. And then we're going to talk about this situation with Pan-Africanism. And I used to really deal with Pan-Africanism, right? I used to subscribe to Pan-Africanism. And one thing that raised my knowledge a lot was social media and the internet. The internet allowed us to learn way more than we could ever learn. And because I've been on the internet, I increased my knowledge thousands of times. Because now we can see more. You know, we can see more. We can learn more now. We can learn more than we used to could learn. It used to be limited on what we could learn, how much we could know. Used to be limited. But once we got the internet, we was able to learn a lot more, go more in depth. Also, as time goes, more stuff is revealed, more stuff is uncovered, more information is uncovered. And so the internet has been a blessing It's increased our availability to learn a lot. It really has. And I would advise you to really study and learn a lot. Learn as much as you possibly can. Okay, 3426. All right, check this out. This is Trump talking about what Americans built, and everybody he shows is black. It's crazy. Look. And so he's bragging about what we invented, what America invented. But everything, every invention he mentioned, a black person invented it. So let's get to the basic part of the conversation, and that's about uh, Pan Africanism. Pan Africanism is a washed philosophy. When I grew up, it was really reggae music that really put Pan Africanism on the map, because we did have scholars and things like that teaching us about African history, but the study of African history is not actually Pan Africanism. That's just history. So the Pan African movement came up through reggae to the United States in the late 70s. Because people are going to try to go back to Garvey and them. I'm not talking about that era. I'm talking about in relationship to you all. Because Pan-Africanism was gone, didn't exist in the later 50s and in the 60s, was gone. So don't let nobody make you think there was a connection that Pan-Africanism stayed here from the Garvey era. Once Garvey went down, Pan-Africanism was through. There was no more Pan-Africanism. When you get to the 60s with the Black Power movement and all that, they were not Pan-Africans. They were black liberationists fighting for the liberation of black people in the United States. They were not pushing back to Africa. The Pan-African movement didn't grow. It started growing like 1978, 79, 80, 81, 82. And it really got big through the 80s. And that was on the back of reggae. Don't let nobody fool you. It wasn't on the back of no Dr. Ben or Chancellor Williams or none of that. That was just historical. That was the studying of black history. Studying black history is not Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism is really the unity of black people and repatriation. A lot of Pan-Africans leave repatriation out because they ain't never planning to go back. You understand? So when you hear somebody talking about Pan-African, 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 but they never go to Africa, they frauds. Because the biggest Pan-African is Marcus Garvey, and Marcus Garvey said what? Africa for the Africans. And he had the Black Star Liner, and the plan was what? To go back to Africa. So when you see these Pan-Africans that never go to Africa, those ain't Pan-Africans. Those are frauds. Those are frauds. Now, I just mentioned a brother that be claiming he a Pan-African. He ain't no Pan-African. He's a historian, but he ain't no Pan-African. He ain't moving to no Africa. He's not moving to Africa. He's not. Ever. There's no plans out of his mouth to pan his ass to Africa. He's a fraud. He's not a Pan-African. He's somebody that repeats history, but he's not a Pan-African. Because Pan-Africanism is repatriation. Africa for the Africans, which was the Rastaman's culture. Africa for the Africans, those at home and those abroad. And the whole teaching of Pan-Africanism is to go to Africa, period. Pan-Africanism ain't sitting around hollering and screaming and talking about no black stuff in America. That's not Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism, Dr. Umar is not practicing Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism would be building a school in Africa. That would be Pan-Africanism. Building a school in the United States would never be considered Pan-Africanism. Nowhere. You had the late 70s and 80 group, them 92,000 babies coming up, making up stuff. Them the baby, they just started making up stuff. They took the original knowledge and twisted it all up. I wouldn't debate none of them and just take their money just to take their money. And then we would have to see who the judges be, because the judges would have to be old enough to know the knowledge. Couldn't have no young judges because they wouldn't know what the hell I'm talking about. Just like the person I would be debating don't know what they're talking about. Pan-Africanism was repatriation. Repatriation is a must. Africa for the Africans. That's Pan-Africanism, is going to Africa. This is why Marcus Garvey was considered a failed Pan-African, because he passed away in Europe when W.B.E. Du Bois made it to Africa. So people always said, the real G's in the gang, the real kings and queens of this knowledge, always said that Marcus Garvey talked crazy to Du Bois, but Du Bois made to Africa and Garvey didn't. This is real black history here. This ain't no little boy stuff. This is big boy stuff. So Marcus Garvey, by real people really got knowledge, real scholars, Marcus Garvey is considered a failure. He bought a bunch of ships that wasn't seaworthy. He went to prison. He got out. The Jamaicans hated him, threw rocks at him, chased him out of Jamaica. He ran to Canada and he ran to Europe. And he never made it to Africa. Whereas the person he was always debating, W.B.E. Du Bois, made it to Africa. Garvey didn't. And was hated in Jamaica, but because of a lack of famous people of Jamaican culture, the Rastas just suck up to him anyway, regardless of the fact he disrespected Rastafari. And so that just shows how phony Jamaican Rastas are to uphold, call themselves Rastafarians after Rastafari, who was Emperor Haile Selassie, but have Marcus Garvey talk crazy about Haile Selassie. That's really your Godhead, but you still love Marcus Garvey. That's how phony they is with that stuff. That's how phony that is, right? You know what I'm saying? And they don't want no smoke either. Don't nobody want no smoke with Big Pharaoh. And this, we just gonna keep that straight. No kind of smoke. Not no smoke on the internet or no smoke outside. You don't want none of this over here. I'ma just tell you just straight up. You don't want none of this. None of this. Because I lived with Roscoe Joe Brown. And Roscoe Joe Brown and Mortimer Plano, they the ones that taught Bob Marley and all of them. And this the brethren I lived with in Compton. And that's who told me that we don't check for Marcus Garvey. Right? So the way that went is one day we stayed with him out at Compton sometime, and sometime we stayed in LA with the King's Chamber. And one day when we got to Compton, we got to Kojo's house, and I had this red, black, and green ribbon on. And Kojo say, "What out, man? What's that?" I said, "Oh, yeah, this is the red, black, and green ribbon for the children that had got unalive. Remember the black brother that they lied? I think they lied on him, but remember they was accusing that brother back in the early 80s for grabbing all them children, the missing children in Atlanta, I think it was, right? Remember him? So they had these little red, black, and green ribbons to remember those black children that I got grabbed, right? Let me see if I can find the story. There it is. Here it go right here. So everybody know how I'm keeping it a billion, right? I ain't gonna tell y'all no lie. It's the real history story over here. The most prominent cases of missing black children in the early 80s were the Atlanta children unalivings, which involved the kidnapping and unaliving of approximately 29 African American children, teens, and young adults between 1979 and 1981. Right? He was convicted in 1982. I got to LA in 1982. Right? I got to LA. I'm walking history book. So I got to LA in 1982. I was in Chicago in 81 where Dick Gregory was telling what really happened, which I might talk about one day, because Dick Gregory said it was done for interferon, to take the interferon out of their bodies. And listen, don't nobody want none of this smoke over here. So I'm in LA, so they giving out some little red, black, and green ribbons. So when I get to Ross Kojo house, the elder, him and Mortimer Plano wrote Sodoma Sagana on a lot of Bob Marley songs, right? They the ones that converted Bob Marley, Bunny Wailer, and Peter Tosh into Rasta, all right? All right, so I'm the young Black American Rasta, Kemetic Rasta, privy to this level of the elders, feel me? I ain't just no guy over here. I'm really him. So I had on the little ribbon. So Kojo say, "What that? What that?" I said, I was proud. I said, "Oh yeah, this red, black, and green little ribbons is for the children that was unalived in Atlanta." And Kojo say, "Garvey business that." Now, I'm telling y'all something, y'all got to really check out what's going on. I'm a young Rasta. I'm a young foundational Black American Rasta. I don't know what's going on, right? You know what I'm saying? It's Marcus Garvey all the way, right? It's Marcus Garvey all the way. So when he say it's Garvey business, I'm confused because Rasta respect Haile Selassie and Marcus Garvey. You know what I'm saying? At that time, it's like Haile Selassie, Marcus Garvey. Haile Selassie's like the Godhead. Marcus Garvey's like the prophet. I mean, yeah, and Bob Marley's like the prophet, right? So when he said Garvey business, that's this me right here. This right before I went out there. I'm still in Chicago. This is me in my mother's living room. So this the young me. So he tell me that's Garvey business. So I'm confused. I'm like, he said, no. And I don't check for Marcus Garvey. So I'm like, wait a minute. You from Jamaica. You are Elder Rasta. You one of the people that built the Rastafarian movement. Marcus Garvey is from Jamaica. Marcus Garvey is held up by all the Rastas. But I got the elder telling me, no one. And I don't check for Marcus Garvey. I'm like, what? So he tell me, he say, no one. Garvey say some negative things about His Majesty, you know. So he telling me that Garvey was talking sideways about Emperor Haile Selassie. So I take it up and throw it down. I'm a baby. I'm a young soldier. I take it off and throw it down. Now I'm still vending. I'm still selling red, black, and green stuff, but I ain't wearing it no more. And man, let me tell you something. I was in Chicago years later because he never told me what Garvey said. I was in Chicago years later. And I heard that Fred Hampton, Chairman Fred, had got out of prison, Fred Hampton Jr. So I'm searching, trying to find some information on Chairman Fred. You know, I'm a revolutionary. And I find this blog page. And it says something about Chairman Fred, but it don't give me no information about him getting out. And then when I went up, it had the letter Marcus Garvey wrote about Haile Selassie. Man, it was horrible. Man, listen. It was horrible. You know what I'm saying? It was horrible. I already wasn't messing with her, but it was official then. Because me, I was like, why would you write that in the European media about a black king of kings and you a black man pushing something, he a black man, a king of kings. Why you didn't do that in private, bro? Like you, Marcus Garvey, you could have went and seen, dude. You actually wrote this out here, and this way a lot of black people, man, y'all stop disrespecting like that in front of other cultures like that. Some stuff needs to stay in-house. So I never really dealt with Garvey. Boom. Now let me go back because I went all the way to when I got here. But when I leave California, I go to Hawaii. The plan is Chicago, California, Hawaii, China, India, East Africa. That's my trip. I'm headed to East Africa. I didn't want to go around the other way because I didn't want to go through Europe. I figured let me go around the mystical countries. Let me go out in Polynesia. Then let me go up and, you know, I'm young, so I'm talking crazy. I'm like, man, I'm gonna go out to Polynesia. Then, man, this is exactly what I was saying. Then, man, I said, like, I'm gonna tell you, Jack, I was thinking, this is me at like 20. This is me at like 22. I'm like, I'm gonna go. I ain't gonna go to Jamaica. I ain't gonna go to Trinidad and then go to Europe way. I'm gonna go the other way and come up on East Africa because I want to come on East Africa. I said if I go to New York way, I'm gonna come up in West Africa. But if I go this way, I'm gonna come up in East Africa. So I said I'm gonna go California, Hawaii, China, India, and then East Africa. And when I go, I could grab all our knowledge that they stole. You know what I'm saying? Man, because I was like, they got our knowledge. They got black knowledge that they hiding in China. They got black knowledge that they hiding in India, which I found out now is true. There's a lot of information in China and India about black people in ancient times. Think about this. I'm like 20, 21, 22. And I'm saying, yeah. And then I'm going to go to Polynesia. Then I'm going to go to China, India. I'm going to grab all our knowledge. Then I'm going to pop up on East Africa where I'll be right there by Egypt, Ethiopia. You know what I'm saying? Hey, real talk. And then I'm going to get back to talking about Pan-Africanism. So I get to California. Me and my brethren, Kepler. We ride on the bus in South Central. And a young Rasta brother get on the bus. Another foundational Black American Rasta. He get on the front of the bus. We sitting in the middle back seat because, we from the rack. So we thugging it out on the back seat. You know what I'm saying? Oh, some like revolutionary type hood dudes, right? So he see us, he come to the back. He's like, what's up, brethren? We're like, what's up, brother? He's like, yeah. He said, I'm from Kansas City. I'm like, oh, man, we from Chicago. He's like, yeah, but I don't live in Kansas City. I live in Hawaii. What's the odds in L.A. that a black Rasta man from Kansas City that's just like us going to get on our bus and he live in Hawaii? And that was our connect to Hawaii. He went to Hawaii. I went and found him. My family came later, and that's how that story all went. Why is that important? Because I'm in Hawaii, right? I'm on my way to Africa. I want to get away from the white man. I'm living on a big island up in the mountains, growing herb in the hills, right? Real talk. So the first thing stopped me from going to Africa was I'm in the middle of the ocean. Hawaii is the place most surrounded by water. There's no other place in the world surrounded by that much water. It's in the middle of the ocean by itself. I'm not on a popular island. I'm on the big island up by the volcano, right? And planes kept flying over my head, right? That was the first sign. Because I'm thinking, if I'm in the middle of the ocean, on a mountain, because this is where I was at. There I go right there, up in the hills, growing. There's my boy in the front, right? That's my boy in the front, and that's me in the back, right? I'm in the hills, right? See the herb over my shoulder? And planes is flying over my head. So I'm thinking, the first thing I started thinking is, I can't get away from them. That was the first thing made me start thinking twice about going to Africa, because the point to go to Africa was to get away from them and go to a black place. But then I realized they was in the sky. Once I realized they was in the sky, that messed up my whole idea of escaping. That's when I began to look at Africa as vulnerable. Because I'm like, well, Africa ain't got no air force. And I'm like, if I separate and go to Africa, they could fly over us and spray us or whatever, and we got no defense. We got no defense. This is when my Pan-African ideology began to wither away, because I realized that the concept of leaving and going to a black continent don't make sense when Europeans are in the air. You're not getting away from nothing. So that's when I first realized I couldn't get away. Damn, they're going to be flying over me. As a young revolutionary, then I started thinking, separating from them ain't smart, because separating from them, they could just blow you up. I need to stay close up around them. They're not going to spray me if I'm next to them, but if I go up here and isolate myself, they could just spray me, bomb me, do whatever. That was the first inkling that started to tear down my concept of Pan-Africanism, when I realized that if you're going to go to Africa, fine, but they in the air. Now we know not only are they on the planes, they are all on the satellites and the spaceships. So ain't no getting away. So then one day, my guardian angel came to me and said, let me ask you something. If you make it to Africa, when you get to Africa, if you turn on the news and you found out that all of the Black Americans had got attacked and hurt and was destroyed, how would you feel? And that was the day I decided to come back. I decided to come back when I realized that I would leave y'all over here. I ain't want to do that. I ain't want to do that. To me, that's a failure. That's when I started realizing, oh, you running. You running. You running to Africa like a little B word. I ain't like that. I wouldn't be comfortable in Africa and y'all ain't doing well over here. This where I'm born at. This where my parents born at. This where my grandparents and great-grandparents born at. This where I got blood in the soil. I ain't got no blood in the soil in Africa. So I came back. That's why I came back. But before I started to come back and left coming back this way, I had a vision one night. And I was on this big old street, like it was concrete. It was like a big street. It looked like maybe it was one of these, like 79th or Stony Island, one of these streets were like 3 or 4 streets, big Broadway-like type streets cross. But it was just like stones all on the ground and just the concrete from the street. And there was these big old trucks with these big wheels rolling. And I took it from the dream, from the people I was with in the dream, those was the water trucks. And I was standing with these black folks waiting on the water truck. And it was desolate. Everything was tore up. It was bricks everywhere. And we was out on the street, like on the side, and it's big, and everything was driving and crossing out here. And I was out there teaching them how to cook and how to eat, because I had learned how to survive outside, right? So because I lived in the jungle, right, I had learned how to cook and how to survive. So in this vision, I was teaching them how to cook and survive, and it was totally destitute in the United States. Totally. And I know it's real Because you see, all my hair, I was young, but in that vision, all this was gray. Some of it's still black, so I know it's not going to happen yet. That vision is going to happen. All of this was gray. And you know it was a vision because I could see myself. A lot of times you have a dream, you're looking from this direction. But this was a vision. I could see myself on the street. And it was like an apocalypse or something in the United States. We was out on the street. I was trying to teach them how to cook outside, right? I was trying to teach them how to cook outside on stones, how to set up the stones and push the wood on their cookers. They was from the city. So I was trying to teach them how to cook outside. You know what I'm saying? Real talk. I kid you not. That was a vision I had. So I'm saying all that to say the idea of Pan-Africanism died right then. My whole concept of going back to Africa, that went out the window. Because the idea that you're some type of soldier or you some type of leader, and then you would go to Africa and leave the rest of the people, that's a coward. Why would you go anywhere if you can't take all your people with you? Why would you do that? So from that point right there, Pan-Africanism to me was a no-go. Can't do it. It's 50 million Black Americans over here. Why would I leave them over here? Why would I leave y'all over here? So from that point there, I never thought about Pan-Africanism no more. But I still paid attention to Africa. I still paid attention to Mandela and all that. And since then to now, Pan-Africanism has totally failed. Because as I kept studying and as I kept looking, I came up with the conclusion that Pan-Africanism got to come from Africa. Pan-Africanism is absolutely no good coming from anywhere other than Africa. I challenge any scholar or anybody want to have this debate. Africa got 1 billion blacks. It's 50 billion Black Americans. It makes no revolutionary or no professional sense for 50 million to dream about going and helping the billion. The only way Pan-Africanism have any type of chance of anything, it's got to come from Africa this way. The billion got to be on that. Without the billion being on Pan-Africanism, people like Sarah Sunseti just going to be talking. Because he can't do nothing from Africa for Africa if Africa can't do nothing for Africa. He just running his mouth. He going to be right there where he at. Because it's Pan-Africanism. It ain't Pan-Black Americanism. We can't save Africa. How we can't help Africa at all. 50 million Black Americans ain't even going. So the most you would even get to go is 10 million. It's 200 million Nigerians. 10 million Black Americans would make no change in Nigeria at all. You'd disappear. And if Black Americans go to Africa, you all ain't going to go to the same place. You're just going to disappear. You ain't going to make no difference. Pan-Africanism is the stupidest idea ever if it doesn't come out of Africa. That's why Marcus Garvey failed and all the other ones failed with it. Pan-Africanism is a fake washed up concept, because you cannot make plans for Africa that don't make no plans for itself. And Black Africans don't get along and don't run nothing in Africa. And so I'll tell any Pan-African to their face that they talking nonsense. They talking make-believe. They might as well be talking Alice in Wonderland. You know what I'm saying? That sound like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. That's why so many Pan-Africans just be internet Pan-Africans. They ain't never going nowhere. They just talking. Because Pan-Africanism have to come out of Africa. Africa have to unite. And there's no chance for no Pan-Africanism until they get certain people out of the continent. And with the Northern Africa being controlled by other people, Pan-Africanism is a joke. You can't have other people controlling your denial and all this oil and all that and talk about building no type of Africa. I'd be surprised some people be calling themselves general and all that, ain't got the sense of a $2 bill. Ain't got the sense of a $2 bill. No doggone well that they ain't got no type of political might or no kind of economical might and don't got enough soldiers to go to no Africa and make no changes. Just talking. Now, how you a general and you don't know statistics of military? And you going to go somewhere and got no Army, no Navy, no Air Force, and no Marines, and no unity, and other people control how many countries? And you talking about Pan-Africanism when Africa ain't even united. Ain't no such thing as Africa. Africa is a false teaching that they fooled us when we was young when they taught us about Africa. Because when they taught us about Africa, they always showed us like the continent. So as foundational Black Americans, we always just think, we always thought about the continent. But once you study and you find out all these tribes and all these different countries, and you find out there's so many other foreign people control so much land, that's when you realize ain't no Africa. The concept of a continent united, that's false. Because if there was an Africa, there would be an Africa language. What language do Africa speak? They don't have a continental language. So how could you look at Africa as a continent, as a continent, and describe Africa like it's one place when they speak hundreds of different languages? They don't have one language. So if they don't have one language, the concept of Africa is a fake concept. It's something they sold us as young soldiers. As a young soldier, they sold me Africa because I didn't know no better. And they always showed us the continent. So we always thought about the continent. We like Africa, Africa. It wasn't until I really got into the knowledge heavy that I realized that continent is not really a real place in the minds of Africans. They're not continental like that. Any African will tell you. West Africans got no connection to East Africans. I say it all the time. One night, I was going into Starbucks. I was out hustling. I was going into Starbucks. And I seen the West African going in. They was in front of me. I seen the East African coming out like an Ethiopian, right? And I seen the West African like a Nigerian going in. And I'm standing back here. So me being all into the culture and everything, I'm watching them. Because I just know that them being from way over on the continent and being way in Chicago, I just know they're going to acknowledge each other, right? They're a long way from home, both of them. They from Africa. Man, they didn't even look at each other. That's all I need to see. Man, they walked right past each other like they wasn't even there. It tripped me out because I speak to every brother from Africa I meet. But you know why? Because I'm thinking Africa. So I'm speaking to these brothers from Africa. But them two brothers showed me that that concept is false. That's not a real concept. There is no Africa. There's no such thing as Africa. Not in real terms. Doesn't exist. It's just a word to identify a piece of land, but it's not a tangible place. So if Africa is not real, then Pan-Africanism is not real. How could you have Pan-Africanism for a continent that ain't united? But you got a united concept. Pan-Africanism is taught as if Africa is united, when it's not. There's no such place as Africa. It doesn't really exist. There is no Africa. That's a Western concept that we're buying into. But in Africa, they're not Africans. They're not Africans. They don't consider themselves no Africans. So what is Pan-African when there is no Africans? There is no Africans. That's a fact. And you can give me a scholar, but the people in Kemet didn't consider themselves no Africans. They didn't consider themselves the same as Nubians, the same as Ethiopians. They wasn't the same. We are focusing on reparations and homes and economics for our babies and our children, our aunties and our mamas and all our relatives that we can't even transport to Africa. I got 6 children. They don't want to go to Africa. So should I leave them? Should I leave them and go over and live with some Africans and their children? Because when I go to Africa, they're going to be there with their children. Y'all understand what I'm saying? So Pan-Africanism is washed up. It's not a realistic concept. It's totally a horrible concept for 50 million Black Americans that got to try to figure out how to survive economically over here. If you look on social media and you look at the brothers and sisters that leave here to go to Africa, they all on YouTube to make money. YouTube ain't African. They got 1 foot. They claiming they live in Babylon. They claiming they live in the United States, but they on Google. They're not independent in Africa. They in Africa doing some American stuff to make $1. So if you got to leave America, but go to YouTube to make money in Africa, make that make some sense. So America ain't no good. You go to Africa on YouTube. Make that make some sense. People I know moved to Africa. I already know how many Jamaicans and how many Black Americans moved to Africa. And out of 100% of people that moved to Africa, only 1 or 2% is still there, and they running back and forth to survive because they can't survive over there. Africa has failed for everybody I know that went over there, including Bunny Wailer when he was over there, Rita Marley when she was over there. It failed. It failed. It failed. It failed. It failed. In 1978, I was 20 years old. My brethren, Junior Brathwaite, one of the original Wailers, lived here in Chicago. And Junior used to go to Jamaica every so many months, hang out with Bunny Wailer when Bunny Wailer get back from his farm in Africa. And Bunny Wailer had mad problems in Africa and eventually couldn't do nothing with his farm. Rita Marley, mad problems. Rest in peace to my brother, Junior Brathwaite. This was the youngest Wailer from the original Wailers. The original Wailers was Bob, Bunny, Peter, Junior Brathwaite, and Vision. They was the original 5 Wailers. That's before the ladies got in the group. Bob mama moved to Baltimore. His mama moved him to Chicago. Bob moved back, but Junior ended up staying in Chicago. And he was back and forth in contact with Bunny Wailer. I got a sister that moved to Kenya. I've called her a few times over here, but she be being shy and she don't be wanting to tell everybody over here what she told me about Kenya. So I ain't gonna call her today. Because when she first came back from Kenya and met us in Hawaii, what she said about Kenya, she don't want to say. But I could tell you, the Kenyans didn't show her no respect. The Kenyans did not look at her as no African. The Kenyans called her Ferengi. And they do not look at you as no African. And this scholar that's talking about Pan-African, if he go to Africa, they are not going to accept him as no African. Okay? They not going to accept him as no African. He just talking. This is my sister. She came back to LA and then came lived with us in Hawaii. And today she still live in Hawaii. Today. An elder Rasta sister. She about maybe my age, maybe a little bit younger. She might have been younger than me at the time. Maybe she was old. I don't know. She's in Hawaii right now. And she said she would never go back to Africa. She would never go back to Africa. She always talked nice about them. But if you asked her, would you go back? She said no. Because it was a horrible experience living in Africa. And JT's experience was horrible too. He just make the best out of it. He ain't going to tell. But they tried to lock him up over there. He had to run up out of there because he was almost going to go to prison. I had his interviews and stuff too. I don't know if they're still up. I took a lot of my stuff down, but I might have saved it. Pan-Africanism is washed up. In Africa, they was selling slaves for people that say slavery ain't real. The Africans was going to war in West Africa. They was going to war with each other. The Portuguese was coming down and trading alcohol and guns with the Africans. One time when the Portuguese came, the West Africans offered them slaves. Real talk. The Portuguese didn't come take no slaves. Let me tell you the real history. The Portuguese never came looking for no slaves. The West Africans offered their enemies they captured to the Portuguese. The Portuguese didn't want them. They're like, what are we going to do with them? But they convinced them to take them. The Portuguese took them back and they sold like crazy up in Portugal and Spain. So the Portuguese came back and said, you got some more. They gave them some more of they people they was fighting with. After a while, when the Portuguese kept coming getting more and more, those West Africans didn't have no more slaves right there in their immediate area that they can give them. So they start going up to Niger, capturing Africans further off the coast, bringing them and selling them. The Portuguese never stepped foot very far into Africa. These are facts. They never stepped foot far into Africa. The Africans bought them the slaves and handed them to them. All they had to do was pull up close and get in boats and row. They didn't have to go inland because the Portuguese did not want to go inland. So all they had to do was pull up right here, park their ship, row up to the slave castle. They'll bring them down, put us in the slave castles, row us back to the big ship and go. They didn't have to go inland. The Africans made it easy for you. Yeah, they made it easy for you. And anybody say slavery wasn't real, ain't seen the slave castles and ain't been in the slave castles. Just talking crazy. When there's monuments and documented proof that they sold millions and millions of slaves. And they sold so many slaves across the Atlantic Ocean that it was the British that banned it. It was the British that said, banned it and put their ships out there and started catching the slave ships because the slave ships were called also pirate ships. This is what they don't tell you. That the slave ships wasn't just used for slaves, those was pirates. Okay? So the British banned them on the water because the British had the strongest navy. So when the British banned slavery on the ocean, that's when they started having breeding farms down south and started to breed them. These are all facts. And they began to breed the slaves. All facts. All you got to do is go read. That's all you got to do. All you got to do is go read. It's all documented. And they had breeding farms, and they started to breed them. These are facts. And they was breeding them everywhere, all through the Caribbean and America. They were breeding slaves. See, look what he said. He said, Black Africans didn't sell their people, right? The key word is their people. Now, let me explain something to you. There's no such thing as Black Africans, right? This is why he'll lose the debate. Let me show you how I'll lose the debate when I drop this. So, if I'm this tribe and I'm fighting that tribe, they not my people. This why I keep telling you, ain't no African. If I'm this tribe and I'm fighting this tribe and I beat them and I sell them, I'm not selling my people. Those are not my people. So the reason Steve say they didn't sell their people, he think they Africans. But they not Africans. It's this tribe and that tribe. And the other tribe is not your people. This is a concept that we got because we believe that Africa is one. We think they're Africans. They're not Africans. And to call them Africans is disrespect. They're not Africans. That's a concept we got. Any African will tell you, any brother or sister from Africa will tell you they are not Africans. They're not, there's no such thing as Africans. So when they sold their enemy, how could that be their people and their enemy? They sold people they went to war with. Yes, some Africans sold their enemies into slavery, primarily during the transatlantic slave trade. However, this is an oversimplified and historically incomplete view of the complex process by which millions were enslaved. While some African elites and merchants did participate, it is crucial to understand the context. Before European arrival, many African societies practiced forms of servitude, but these differed significantly from the chattel slavery of the Americans. So that's like in the Bible. In the Bible, when it say when you went into bondage, you went into bondage for just 7 years. That's servitude. After 7 years, they let you go, right? But see, the thing is, when they sold the people, they didn't know that they weren't going to never let them go. Methods of enslavement. People could be enslaved to pay off a debt as punishment for a crime or through capture during warfare. Now, let me show you where that's all incorrect. That's bull. When the Portuguese and them started realizing they was making money, they started coming back, and the Spanish found out. So they started coming back, taking slaves. Answer me this. We do know that there was a time where they invaded Africa. We know that. What gave them the idea to invade Africa? To take more slaves and to enslave people there. What happened in the Congo? What did Leopold do? He enslaved them. They found out. See, that's incorrect. They found out. They didn't necessarily have to take slaves because there was slavery that needed to be done right there in Africa. Yeah, the Berlin Conference. They found out that there was slavery that needed to be done right there. Look, let me show you something. Why just come and take Africans to be slaves when you can enslave them right in Africa? Why do that? Why go through all that? When you find out it's natural resources in Africa, because they keep trading, giving you all their stuff, what you gonna do? You're gonna go in there And you're going to make them work right there. And so now, when the British blocked them from being able to bring slaves back and back on the ocean, then the slavery commenced in Africa. They began to go into the interior Africa. That's how you got this right here in the Congo. They began to come with tanks and military to invade Africa. They said, you know what? We ain't gotta be scared to go up in there. Shaka Zulu invited them on in, made them more comfortable to come further and further in, further and further in, further and further in. So they got cocky. They came on up in there, brought the Gatling guns with them. That's how the Matabele lost. That's how the Matabele lost. You see it. They documented it. They couldn't beat them with hand-to-hand combat, so they went and made a gun that you can wind up so they could mow down the tribes. And once they seen that work, America said, hey, we could use that on the ones over here. These are all facts. This ain't no make-believe stuff. Yeah, they came with this. And this allowed them to go all over the world and do the same thing. You understand? Now, I ain't anti-Africa. So that's not the point of this live stream. I'm pro-Africa. But the Africans got to handle that. I'm a military tactician, and we can't help you. And we need all hands on deck over here. So we're not in a position to split up our army over here and go somewhere that's got 1 billion Africans that should be able to handle their business. The Black Africans got to handle that over there. Never do you got, if you having a gang war and there's 10,000 of y'all, and then there's some of them over here, it's 50 of them, you going to go try to get the 50 of them to help the 10,000? Because that's what it's like us trying to help 1 billion Africans. We only 50 million. What can we do for 1 billion people? Nothing. It's not even militarily, doesn't even make any sense militarily for you to go to Africa. It makes no sense. When you barely can defend yourself over here. The whole concept about going to Africa when your people have got diabetes, cancer, overweight, they ain't even equipped to fight. The first thing you would do is get your people in shape, teach them to eat right, get them to exercise, and get them in shape for combat. Africa don't need you over there. Let me tell you something. I was in the post office. It was about 3, 4 years ago. It was a black woman standing behind me. And I heard her talking and I knew she was from Africa. So I talked to her. And she was like Ghanaian and Nigerian. Like her mama Ghanaian, her daddy Nigerian. Like she was from 2 countries. She was cool as hell. And me, I asked real serious questions. I asked real questions. I don't do this fake internet stuff. I keep it a billion. So I asked her to give me the ins and outs of going to Africa. I said, if I want to go to Africa, sister, what I need to know. And she said, tell your brothers and sisters that if they own any pharmaceuticals, they cannot come to Africa. She says, I live here in America and I got medicine I'm on. And when I go visit my family, I have to take 2 months supply of my medicine because I cannot get my medicine in Nigeria or Ghana. So she said, you can only stay as long as your medicine lasts. Facts. So tell your people they can't get their meds over there. Ethiopia just completed a major power dam that the Egyptians don't like and are willing to go to war if they turn it on and they mess up that water in the Nile. Just so you know who you're talking to. That dam is going to cause a war because the Egyptians told them, don't turn that damn dam on because it's going to mess up the Nile up there where they is at. They're going to war over there. But thank you for the information. That's late. I'm really him. Yeah, that's a war. That dam is a war. Africa ain't got nothing to do with me. I got my head in the game over here. To many of you brothers and sisters, I know this sounds harsh to you, but by the time you have grandchildren, it'll make sense. Because you ain't leaving your grandbabies to go nowhere. And you ain't leaving your children going no damn Africa. You're just talking. It's not till you become a responsible parent and raise some children to be grown. And then those children be grown for you know your stake into a place where you live at. Because your stake is your family. And what you got in a country is in your family. I got 6 children. I got grandchildren. Leave what? My sister, my mother and father passed away. Only left from us is me and my sister. Who believe I'm going to leave my sister to go to Africa? Who believe I'm going to leave my children and go live in Africa? Who believe I'm going to leave my grandchildren and go to Africa and live with Africans with their children? That's what I'm telling y'all. It's make-believe talk. It's not based on the real. We live in a real life. I've really got African friends. And they living in turmoil because their mama in Africa. They not cool with that. Y'all just be talking. A lot of Africans would laugh at y'all because Africans do not want to be over here if their family is back in Kenya. That's a fact. They're not comfortable with being over here and their family over there. Y'all think they comfortable? They doing it for strictly economical purposes. They economically forced to live in England and here, and they don't want to be here. They want to be back with their family. So everything I'm saying, the Africans would agree. I'm telling you, Africans would not be pissed at what I'm saying. Africans know exactly what I'm saying. They not leaving their family, man, just to come over here. Just for what? They only over here for economical situations. That's it. And they live in turmoil because they mama way over there. Don't nobody want to leave their mama, but they try to send money to try to make it better. They feel like, you know what I'm saying? I'm sending money, make it better. You know what I'm saying? If Africans was here and they family was living over here good like our families, ain't no way they would leave. Man, it ain't no way. None of my African brethren and sisters, and I know, if they was living like how I'm living and my sister and our children, it ain't no way they would leave them and go to Africa. Ain't no way in the world. It'll never happen. Africans. All my African friends, if I brought them over here, they'll laugh in y'all face because it ain't no way. If their family was all over here and had the opportunities you got over here, it ain't no way. They'll move nowhere and leave their family. Is you crazy? When I was young, I was living in a dream world. I'm gonna go back to Africa. I didn't know what I was dumb, young, living a dream. You know, when you're young, you ain't the brightest bulb in the lamp. So yeah, I'm gonna go back to Africa. You know what I'm saying? If I would have went to Africa in the 80s, I would have been back in the 80s. Yeah, I would have been back. It would have been a waste of time. I would have been back. If I went to Africa in 1986, I would have been back by 1988, 89. I'd have been back. Maybe 86 if they would have get on my nerve over there. Ain't no way I would have stayed over there. How? My high school girlfriend, she live in Africa and she ain't never there. She back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Keep trying to sell me to go to Africa. I'm like, baby girl, how you gonna try to sell me to go to Africa and you always back here? You always back here making money. Y'all believe that's a good sales pitch for Africa? This is my high school girlfriend. We graduated, got our first apartment. She live in Africa. She always back here selling stuff and doing stuff. She don't understand that her being back here is not a good selling pitch for me to go to Africa. Is that, y'all be honest? If she always back here selling things, because she make food, if she always got to come back here and sell food and stuff, is that a good sales pitch for me to go to Africa? When she here twice a year? What that tell you? That tells you she got to come over here to make some money. She ain't making nothing over there. And she always asks me, do I want to go over there? I just be being polite. You know what I'm saying? Because I ain't trying to hate on her. You know, she doing her thing. You know what I'm saying? She in Africa. All right, cool. You know what I mean? That's cool. You in Africa. I ain't gonna hate on it. But me coming? Come on now. Me kind of Africa, bro. I'm not moving to no Africa. Why would I do that? I don't have no type of situation over there. I don't have no stable situation there. You know, I don't have a stable stable situation to move there. Pan-Africanism is not a realistic situation. That's some phony nonsense, okay? And y'all don't waste y'all time listening to that, because the people that are talking that Pan-African stuff, they're going to be here forever. They ain't going to never leave here. They just going to be here talking. One brother, he called himself a general. He over there doing gossiping, talking about, just trying to make YouTube money. I ain't trying to hate on him, but he need to shut up, because he can't even stand on his subject matter, because it ain't enough subject matter for him to make no YouTube money. So he all over the place. You know what I'm saying? I'm being nice, because I like the brother. So I ain't gonna do him like how I would do somebody I ain't like. I would do him dirty. You know what I'm saying? On my soul. He go watch his page. He over there talking about anything and everything to get some views. He ain't standing on no revolutionary nothing. Bro, if you don't shut up, bro, get yourself together. I'm really disappointed in some of his content. You know what I'm saying? It's like, man, that whole concept, don't y'all buy into that. Don't buy into the African nonsense. That's all it is. And it's disrespectful to the brothers and sisters in Africa. It's like you acting like you don't know what they're going through over there. Now, don't get me wrong. It's some nice places in Africa. It ain't like Africa is all horrible or nothing like that. And I think it's time for people to stop just, pushing Africa like it's one big country and everything is nice and you could just go over there and walk around and be African with all the problems the brothers and sisters got over there. I think it's disrespectful. I do. And Pan-Africanism been failed many years ago. Pan-Africanism is a failed concept. It's totally failed. Totally. And people still pushing it. The Africans said they was, wow. Okay, listen, he said the Africans said they was waiting for us to rise up. Now imagine 1 billion people waiting on 50 million. That's a failed concept right there. Even if we raised up, we can't help no billion Africans. It's 200 million Nigerians. And this is what I'm trying to say, Josh, where people talk about Africa, but they don't lay down none of the facts and none of the statistics or nothing. It's 200 million Africans just in Nigeria. That's just one country. Foundational Black Americans, all 50 million of us, couldn't help Nigeria. We couldn't do nothing for Nigeria. 50 million of us. What we could do with 200 million? So what the hell we could do with a whole continent, 1 billion people, which a lot of them ain't even black. So you got to deal with all them Turks and Arabs on North Africa. It's just a fake make-believe concept. We shouldn't be passing that Pan-African concept down to our children now that we learn better. It's one thing for me to had taken it up for a while, but it'd be foul for me to pass that down to the next generation now that I see it's a flawed concept. It's a concept Marcus Garvey had, but they didn't know nothing. When you start talking about Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, you got to put it in context based on the time period they was in. And you got to be like, they did good for that time period. But what they did ain't good today, wouldn't be good today, knowing what we know. They was great for their time period. None of that stuff would be great today. Not at all. You got to respect them for their time period. Know what I'm saying? That's why Elijah Muhammad is one of my favorites ever for what he said and what he was pushing at that time period. I think is one of the greatest things ever. For that time period, I think it was amazing. But I feel like Pan-Africanism is disrespectful to Africans. I believe it undermines their plight and make their plight like it's a joke. I think it shows a lack of knowing anything about African people. I think it is disrespect to all of the hundreds of tribes in Africa. I think it's disrespectful to the various countries. I think it's disrespectful to recognizing how big the continent is. I just think it's like, I think it's disrespectful. I think it's making Africa like it's some little place or something. And I don't think that people know how huge Africa is. I don't. You got to be crazy to be talking about Pan-Africanism with Africa right now in 2025. You have to be out there and lost your mind. That sounds crazy. And Dr. Umar ain't never going to really do nothing in Africa but bounce back and forth over there and put on African clothes and talk. That man ain't going to establish nothing in Africa. He can barely get a school open in America. These brothers be pimping Africa to be able to talk and hold an audience. To me, they play on your instincts and play on your revolutionary consciousness and be pimping Africa. To me, it's a pimp game. It's like a pimp conversation. Talk about something you ain't even on none of that. You ain't never going to Africa. You just running your mouth. You know what I'm saying? You ain't going nowhere. You ain't never going nowhere. You ain't going no Africa. Let that go. Ain't a time when you go by. You know what I'm saying? These dudes be talking about Africa, they could have been left. You know what I'm saying? Dr. Ben didn't ever move his ass back to Africa. Facts. He never moved back to Africa. But ain't nothing you could do anyway. It ain't nothing you could do. The idea that you can go to Africa and do something, but you can't do nothing over here is totally ridiculous. This is a much smaller place in Africa. 50 million out of 360 million is more powerful than 50 million out of a billion. And if you can't pull off nothing here, what make you think you could pull off something in Africa? And why you trying to, you're trying to go to Africa like it's black and overlook all of the European influence, the French, the British, the Germans, the Russians, the Americans. Everybody is over there in their pockets. So all you doing is leaving a place where you're being controlled by people that live here to move to a place that's being controlled by people that live in Europe. The only difference between Africa and here is the people that control us is like right here mostly. You know what I'm saying? And I think to me, G-Rock, is disrespect. I think for me to just blow off like, oh, Pan-Africanism and all this, I think is disrespect. Because if it was a way to do something, the brothers would have did it already in Africa if that could be achieved. I think it's totally disrespect. I really think the Africans is lost too, because I believe the Africans can do more for Africa coming over here working for us than they could do coming over here being separate. But they don't got the concept either. Yeah, they paying taxes to European countries, for sure. All of them West African countries, like 8 to 12 of them is paying taxes to the French. Oh, all type of stuff going on over there, Josh. But that's because they don't know how big it is. You know, the Africans slow, low key. No, I don't think the Africans are slow. I don't think the Africans are slow. I don't believe the Africans are slow. I believe they're just in a different environment, but I don't believe they slow. Yeah, I don't believe that. I believe the Africans is up under the worst apartheid, the worst oppression. That's what I believe. I don't believe they slow. You know what I'm saying? Because it's slow people everywhere. You know what I'm saying? Every race, everybody got some slow people. So I ain't gonna say that. I don't believe the Africans are slow. I believe the Africans is under the worst oppression. That's what I believe. In terms of Africa. That's how I look at Africa. And I don't believe I will be able to help because Africa got all the natural resources, so they under the most oppression in the whole world. You understand? And these Pan Africans don't realize that. They don't realize you're not moving to Africa. You're moving to iron, diamond, gold, platinum, uranium. That's where you're moving. Oil, coffee. That's where you're moving. You're not moving to Africa. You're moving to live on top of the natural resources, the most natural resources in the world. That natural resource they use for spaceships, that's only in Africa and Haiti. And so our brothers and sisters in Africa is sitting on top of all of these riches. So they under massive attack. Massive attack. Desperation or survival, which one is Africa under? Africa is under world domination for its natural resources. Everything that's happening to them is to discombobulate the brothers and sisters, to rob them. It's like this, Josh. It's like where you live at right now, Josh. And everybody in your whole city found out it was $350 million worth of gold under your crib where you live at. That's what it's like, Josh. The word got out that under your crib is $350 million worth of gold. Now, I mean, not to your city, I mean your house. Your house or your apartment where you live at. Imagine if the word got out that right under where you actually live, your house. Like, what if the word got out that right under this floor here, it was $350 million worth of gold? How safe would I be? Hey, Josh, How good would things go for me? Not really good at all. So the black brothers and sisters in Africa is sitting on quadrillions, cadillions, zillion dollars. I don't even believe it's a word for it. I don't believe there's no word for the wealth of the natural resources that's in Africa. I bet you there ain't no number for it. What's the highest word, the highest money? A zillion? There's more than a zillion in Africa. If a zillion is the highest number, there's more than a zillion dollars worth of natural resources in Africa. So the brothers and sisters is up under a war zone. Now I'm speaking out of respect. Why would I come? What am I going to do but get in the way? Don't you listen to none of these militant, none of these people talking that fake. Don't listen to that. Stick with reparations. Stick with your lineage. Stick with something that we can talk about to better our communities, better ourselves, eat better, take care of ourselves, get some money, stuff like that. These are conversations we need to be having. Mental health, being focused, unity. All that militant stuff, that's trash. Going against reparations, going against FBA, that's trash. When you see brothers and sisters out here trying to do something, trying to get reparations, stuff like that, don't say nothing about them. Stay in your lane where you at. When y'all hear black Americans talk about Africa and talking about making moves in Africa, that's all phony. That's all fake. Because without uniting a big contingency of black Americans, they ain't got no power to do nothing. So when you see a black American constantly pushing Pan-African without no big, huge movement or contingency that actually got the military capabilities, the economics, the educational, and all of that in line to really do something in Africa, that's just talk. That's just jibber jabber. They can't do nothing in Africa, just talking. They all Pan, no African. All them Pan Africans. Deep down in their heart, they hate reparations. They hate FBA. Because it shuts down what they've been teaching all these years. Because we focusing on what we got to do here. And they wanted to keep us focused on Africa. Umar the same way. That's why Umar hate reparations. You hear what he say? He said, don't give us the reparations, because if we give it to us, we ain't going to do nothing but mess the money up. But he got all that money for the school. And what did he do with it? You would think a man like Umar that got donations for a school from us, when you ask him about reparations, he would say, yeah, give them reparations because they've been sending me money, right? Imagine a person that foundational black Americans been sending money, and then you ask them about reparations, he say don't give it to them because they're going to mess their money up. And we sent him money, and all of them end up being nothing. They all fall off and disappear. You never see them stay strong and be no Pan-African for no whole long time. They be gone. Y'all listen to me. You be young and you be out here with these brothers, be like, yeah, Africa. Ah, yeah. Man, 20 years later, they gone. How many people you think I came up with was when I was standing on something? How many of them you think still here? None of them. How many of them you think still got their locks, still got their hair, still eat right? No, they be gone. They just be talking that stuff for a little while and they disappear. You know what I'm saying? They be gone. Y'all right. Focus on reparations. Focus on building in America. Focus on businesses, family, getting you some money in the United States before it ain't no money. Don't listen to nobody telling you about going all the way to no damn Africa, where you ain't going to do nothing but come back like everybody else that go over there. My father told me, never move nowhere where you meet too many people from. And with all the Africans over here, why would you go to Africa? With all the Ethiopians in Washington, D.C., why would I move to Ethiopia? With all the Jamaicans trying to run up here, why would I move to Jamaica? With all the Ghanaians and Nigerians in America, why would I move to Ghana or Nigeria when they don't even want to be there? My little Nigerian homie say he ain't never going back to Nigeria. He said he want his children to be he want his children to be Black Americans. That's what he said. I said, dude, my little Nigerian homie. He said, Pharaoh, I ain't never going back to Nigeria. He said, I want my children to be Black Americans. That's what he told me. I don't want my children to have my accent, nothing. That's what he said. He said he ain't never going back. He told me Nigeria is the worst place ever. He said it's horrible. All they do is rob their people. They girls got to cut all their hair off to go to school. You got to pay to go to grade school, all that. I know more than I be talking about. I don't be telling everything. You understand? On my soul. Y'all stand on business, stand up for reparations and push for reparations. Well, this need to be the generation to get it. They've been kicking that can down the road. Now they're going to be disrespecting us if we don't stand on that. Y'all don't know how the system works. If we don't stand on that, they're going to disrespect us. They try to use all this foolishness Trump doing to block us for pushing for what we want. But we need to push it right under his administration instead of letting him punk y'all like that. Look, man, let me get out of here. I'm going to edit some of this out of here, but if you want to see the full thing, it'll probably be on Patreon or something like that. You know what I'm saying? But y'all stand up and fight. Fight for what you want. Facts.